Welcome to a new episode of the Carpool Startup Show. Thank you very much to Mazda for helping us out here. And today I have the big pleasure to introduce you to Andreas, who is the CEO and co-founder of Zulu5. Welcome to the Startup Show.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here, Cedric.
Let's go for a ride.
Yeah.
Yeah, welcome back everybody to this new episode of the Carpool series of my startup show. It's really exciting to have this Mazda for a couple of weeks to drive around with startups and investors. So today I have the big pleasure to meet with Andreas, who is the CEO and co-founder of Zulu5. Very interesting industry his startup is in. So as usual on the startup show, Andreas, you get about a minute and a half to introduce yourself to my audience.
So I'm Andy, 30, soon to be 37 years old, married, 4 kids, started a company about 2.5 years ago. Before that was studying in St. Gallen, worked at Hewlett Packard, and love the startup life, love entrepreneurship, always have. So it's great fun at the moment. Great fun also from a point of view that you can really structure your life as you want it, spend time with the kids when you want to. Very, very nice episode of my life.
Good. So tell us, you just said like you moved from HP to startup life. What are the main differences that you see, let's say, between corporate life versus startup?
I'd say corporate life is a bit more structured. I mean, when you work for a company that's like 300,000 employees, you know, you're a soldier generally. You're not a general. There are very few generals and a lot of soldiers. So if you're happy with the soldier life, it's good, it's fun. It's a bit more challenging to bring in new ideas, to do new stuff. So that was ultimately also the reason why I wanted to do something myself.
So talking about doing something yourself, so you said you started your company about 2.5 years ago. Tell us a little bit about Zulu5.
It was a couple of friends coming together. They already worked in the advertising industry with their own companies, with startups as well. They introduced me to an idea that so far nobody had really covered. It just clicked, and we said, you know what, we're gonna do this together. Mm-hmm. So we started with a pretty humble budget, and the past 2.5 years have been a very interesting ride. It's been a good experience.
So tell me, what do you do? What does Zulu5 do?
So Zulu5 is engaged in the marketing industry, online marketing industry, and we observe misplaced advertisements. So you have to imagine the online ad industry, the way it works, it's like a big marketplace. Yeah, you have a demand side, you have a supply side. The supply side is the publishers that have their ad space, and the advertisers, they supply the ads, and you know, they negotiate prices. You have the websites that say, you know, we have certain ad spaces and they cost that and that much, and you have the advertisers that say we're willing to pay that much. And so there's a price negotiation. And in recent years, what's happened is that this whole ecosystem has become fully automated. Yeah. So essentially, there is bidding going on all the time, every time you visit a website. And with this automated approach, what happened as well is that you've introduced intermediaries that just facilitated the placement of ads online, mm-hmm. and sometimes more than one intermediary. So you might have 2, 3, 4, 5 intermediaries that are all involved in ad placement. So the advertiser oftentimes doesn't even know, you know, where the ad is actually goes through to reach a certain website. Right. So he goes to a media agency, says, you know, I want to place ads online. Please go for it. I want to reach a certain demography. I want to reach a certain website. And then the agency goes out and buys ad space, maybe from a network. The network maybe buys it from another network, and so on and so forth. So from the point where the media agency books an ad, or whoever books an ad, sometimes it's the advertiser itself, until it reaches a website, it can go through many different paths. Mm-hmm. And the challenge with this is that this has opened the doors for fraudsters to essentially come in and pose as an intermediary, and then misplace ads maybe to a website that is not really deserving, where your ad is not seen, or you place like tons of ads on one website, or you place it in a little pixel, or the ad is being passed on to a website that's non-deserving. So there is a lot of means by which ads can be, you know, subject to fraud ultimately.
Yeah. So what's your solution to this problem?
There are generally 2 approaches how you can tackle this problem. One is you try to follow the ad through the ecosystem and try to block it when you see, okay, you know, it might end up on a website where it shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. The other approach, it's actually quite simple to think of, but nobody's done it so far, is that you scan those websites that you don't want your ads appearing on. So may they be, terrorism websites, may they be pornographic, gambling, piracy-related websites. Essentially all the websites that, the average advertiser doesn't want to have his ads associated with. We actively scan those websites, and when we then see an ad of an advertiser appearing on that website, we trace back the ad to its origin. So we record the whole delivery chain of the ad, and then we provide this information to agencies or to advertisers directly, so that they, first of all, see, okay, what's my exposure out there? Yeah, do I have an exposure on any websites that I don't want to be associated with? And then secondly, if they do, that they get all the relevant information, what happened and where they need to intervene in order to prevent this ad from appearing there again. Mm-hmm. And in the past, the way this has worked is that, screenshots were sent around. Hey, listen, I just see my ad on this and that website. How did it happen? And then the media agency went crazy, calling everybody. Was it you? Was it you? And you can,
You can't really know who it was.
You can't really know. And everybody said, no, it wasn't me. And nobody could prove that it was them. So we provide this intelligence. And it's quite interesting. You confront people with this information. Some kind of deny it and say, I don't really want to see it. Others are like, oh yeah, for the first time I actually see how my ads are being placed on websites. Yeah. So it's quite interesting to see the reaction of people.
Interesting. What can you, let's say, if you have, let's say, a practical example of, I don't know if you're allowed to say names of companies, but let's say you say, what is practical example of someone who, let's say, used your service and then you were able to help him out?
Let's take an advertiser and let's take a video network. I've had a client, a video network, that has been buying ad slots from another network. Yeah. And it had no idea where that network was placing ads. Mm-hmm. Absolutely no idea. It tried to follow the ad, it implemented a little pixel, and the pixel tried to follow the ad, tried to find out where the video was being placed, ultimately had no idea. Yeah. And once they engaged our solution, 2 weeks later, they quit 5 publishers. They told them, what, guys, you're tricking us, because their ads were ending up on the worst kind of websites, and they had absolutely no idea. So for that video network, it was all about cleaning up their supply chain. Mm-hmm. So cleaning up who they're booking through and who they can trust. So it's all about supplier quality management. Right. And advertiser, there was a large consumer brand. They essentially looked, they wanted to double check where their brand was being associated with. So they wanted to monitor their media agency or media agencies to see where do my ads end up and is it where we agreed on. So it's contract enforcement, but it's also brand protection, because the worst thing, imagine if you're responsible for marketing, the worst thing is if you end up in a newspaper saying, this and this ad has been seen on a terrorist website, as we've recently seen with this YouTube article on, I think it was IKEA being associated with some radicalist YouTube videos. This is not what you want.
For sure, absolutely.
It's not what you want.
Tell me, where do you stand now with your startup? What's the stage of development?
Stage of development, we're in the positive, that's for sure. So we break even. We're now in a growth phase where we expand internationally. So we're talking with large media agencies for global deals. Yeah. So not just Swiss, Austria. It started off in Switzerland, Austria, Germany. Now really talking about UK, US, also Nordics, Italy, Southeast Asia. There's interest there as well. It's the Wild East, so to say, down there. It's expanding, but you have to imagine I'm kind of creating my own niche market. Yes. So it's a market that has been somewhat there, but just not for that kind of approach that I'm providing. The fun thing is I can create my own market, and once the market is there and people see the need, I don't have any competition. Yeah. But the challenge then again is to educate the market that there is an actual need, because many people prefer to close their eyes and say, everything's good, and kind of the principle of hope. I hope nothing's going to happen. Yeah. Some are in self-denial, others are really endorsing of these new technologies and new insights. And depending on who you talk to, they get it, and you're having a fun time with them.
For sure. One interesting thing is, I haven't had too many startups that had corporate investors. Maybe 1 or 2 sentences about, let's say, your experience with the Entity Media Group as an investor.
Them investing in us came about through discussions, because obviously they have an online presence that they market themselves. Yeah. So they have an internal group that makes sure that the ad slots are being are being booked at the highest price possible, of course.
Yeah.
So they're a profit center internally. And they were all about quality. You know, they also have other other websites that they do publishing work for. So for them, it was important to post towards the market, hey, we're high quality. And with Zulu, they could prove that. Essentially, they could tell their clients, you know what, we're using technologies like Zulu, obviously do more than just using us, to make sure that the ads of their clients are really ending up in the places where they should end up.
Yeah.
And so out of this discussion came, why don't we work together, especially for the Swiss market? And so they invested in us to also develop another product, which is now Market Insights, where we don't just screen the rubbish of the internet, but also scan the good websites just to show people, where have you been ending up on?
Yeah.
Via which channels? Where does your competition place ads? And why don't you place ads where they place their ads? So new products are coming out through the investment with that corporate investor Entity.
Yeah.
It's been very fruitful because ultimately they have the same interest. They know the industry very well.
Right.
So we're pulling in the same direction.
I mean, like, definitely, one of the main differences between VC and corporate is probably like VC have interest in ROI, while maybe Entity or like in general corporate investors, they're looking for joining forces in innovation and trying to come up with new innovative business models that help their core business model. Usually in the last part of my show, I talk about the expertise that you bring to the table. Fraud in advertising, that is something that I personally have never heard of. So I was very excited to hear of a totally new niche industry, as you said. But let's talk a little bit about advertising in general. Where do you see the market going when you look at online advertising?
I mean, the way it's been going also with this move towards automated ad placements, or essentially it's programmatic ad placement. The ambition was, or the goal was, to reach the right audience.
Yeah.
So you have to imagine, roughly you have two options. Option number one is you say, I want to book, for example, the NZZ website or the Blick website or whatever. So I'm buying, ad impressions from that website. Another means is to say, I don't just want to book a website, I actually want to book the user that visits the website. Yeah. That this is the ultimate goal. So I would like to reach my demography of 30 to 40-year-olds, female with this and that interest, and possibly that's been visiting other websites related to my product. So I know they're really interested in what I have to offer. So you want to reach the right kind of audience. And this is more and more, this is where it's going. So it's moving away from just kind of, burning your budget and making sure you book a certain amount of ad impressions and kind of praying that some ROI is resulting from that, more and more into you can track, what has the user been seeing, what has he been doing afterwards. So it's going more towards what kind of conversions have come out of my ad impressions that I booked online. And then for the marketing, really to show a return on investment on those marketing efforts, and also reaching the kind of audience that you wanted to reach.
Right. It's super interesting, this whole fraud, because it's, again, as I said, something that I personally haven't heard of in that sphere, that this is even a thing. I did know that sometimes you book, let's say, Google display ads and you have no idea where they're going. So that's definitely interesting. Andy, thank you very much for being with me on this carpool series of the Startup Show. It's been a big pleasure. Thank you very much. And everybody else who is watching, thank you very much for your time and attention watching this carpool series with the Mazda. Thank you very much again to them, and have a great day.
Bye, guys.